Bills home for the holidays, hosting the Patriots. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast. Just 3 regular season games to go. Bills still have work to do.
I'm Andy Young, Kevin Carroll. In the festive spirit last week, it was the low-flow shower head hair. You've rectified that situation with a nice Santa cap.
Put a little hat on this week and celebrate the holiday season coming up, Andy, because I am taking Sunday off, so I won't be on the podcast on Sunday. So this is my way of bringing some holiday joy to the people out there.
Does that mean the ratings for the postgame show are going to go through the roof?
Usually do.
Yep.
Usually if I'm doing something else that day, they go right through the roof. So big game against the Patriots, Andy. Tickets on fire right now to this one. I'm kidding.
I heard they're cheap.
Yeah, they're pretty cheap.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a marquee matchup. However, it tells you something about the slate of NFL games on Sunday that the Bills flexed this game to 4 o'clock, to the 4 o'clock window, because the rest of the games are trash or they're being played earlier in the week.
Yeah, we have a couple of games on Saturday. I mean, Andy, if you looked at the sports schedule on Saturday yet, it's just I told my wife, go out and hang out with some friends. I'm just sitting on the couch watching football from noon until midnight, and she obliged. She has better things to do than to sit around me doing that. But that slate includes, you have the Chiefs playing the Texans, and you have the Steelers and the Ravens in it are also on Saturday. And those 2 games can affect what's going on with the Bills. As the Bills try to chase down the 1 seed, they're still very much in the mix.
Yeah, Josh Allen said, it's an outside shot that we can get to that 1 seed, but we know we have to win out the rest of the way to give themselves a chance to get to that 1 seed. They don't control their own destiny. Chiefs would probably have to lose 2. Mm-hmm. The Bills win out for that to happen and for them to finish with the same record. And then the Bills would get the tiebreaker for the 1 seed. So to me, while this game doesn't have a ton of cachet, the Bills are massive favorites. The Patriots stink. You're coming off an emotional win.
Right.
An emotional loss the week before that for the Bills. Classically, this is kind of that letdown trap game. Sean McDermott was very cognizant to say today, it's a winner's mentality, it's a championship mentality to keep trudging forward and giving your best each and every week.
Might I be going out on a limb by saying that loss to the Rams may have actually come at the right time?
Sometimes, right.
There was an emotional win over the Chiefs, or over the 49ers and the Chiefs, and then you had the Rams, who were a 500 team, maybe I think they even said that they kind of weren't full go for the Rams game. Emotional win against the Lions. Now the lowly Patriots come to town. Then you have the lowly Jets and the lowly Patriots again. But you need to win these 3 games. It's so important if you want that top overall seed. That lesson learned from the Rams, that you can't go into this Patriots game being all wishy-washy.
Right. The Rams are a much better team overall than the Patriots. But that said, it's a division rival. They played them tight last year. I think it was a relatively close game at one point.
They beat them once last year.
Exactly. So you're talking about a team that isn't good, but you still have goals and aspirations out there to get the 1 seed. And I had someone ask me on Blue Sky today, actually, if I thought that the Bills might rest some healthy starters at any point. And I said, not until the playoff seeding is determined. If they go into week 18 and they're locked into the 2 seed, sure, maybe some starters sit or Josh Allen plays a quarter or something.
Right.
McDermott's done that in the past. Doesn't usually sit everybody, which is interesting. No. He likes everybody to have a little bit of game day experience. But until that happens, until they're either locked into the 2 or whatever it is, eliminated from the 1,
right,
they're going to keep going for it, and they should, right?
I still – this scenario can still play out. I remember a few years ago against the Dolphins at the end of the season, kind of a scenario where the Bills were in, but maybe they could get a better seed. They played Josh Allen and the starters, raced out to like a 28-3 lead, and then those guys didn't play in the second half,
Yeah.
and they just hung on. So you could see a scenario like that. I mean, if this plays out where the offense continues to click and they're just moving the ball down the field and the Patriots aren't able to do anything, that maybe you have one of those scenarios where the second half there's less starters out there.
And it's interesting, too, because you thought after Sunday night when Patrick Mahomes limped off and was said to be week to week, all right, doors may be cracked open a bit now. Here comes Carson Wentz. But then Mahomes starts the week practicing in full. So they're kind of like drama mamas about the injuries with Mahomes sometimes, and he's always fine, and he plays.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
Like last year, they're never going to get through the playoffs now that he injured his ankle, I think, last year or something like that, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. So there's work for the Bills to do in this one, Andy.
No doubt about it. And this is a game where the Bills should dominate. I mean, they have better pretty much everywhere across the board. You know, there's a few positions where you could argue the Patriots have some decent players, but offensively, they're kind of bereft of talent, especially at the wide receiver position. Defensively, they're not great either. Patriots kind of classically are always pretty good defensively. Bills aren't really that good defensively either, but offensively, the Bills should dominate this game.
Yeah, and I think they should be able to move the ball, Andy. And I think the ground game, this could be, I mean, with the weather, you know, at 1 o'clock, you were looking at 20 degrees for the kickoff. Now at 4:25, I think is dipped down to around 12 degrees. But we'll get into that a little later. But I think with what we've seen from these running backs, especially the game against the Lions, that all three of them can be involved, I think you can, on offense, maybe go into the game with a run-first mentality, just have Josh Allen hand the ball off, and if you're ripping off yards, quick and dirty football game, get your points and get the game done.
Yeah, I did a sit-down interview one-on-one with Ty Johnson at practice here on Wednesday as we record this for a feature running later this week on Johnson and his journey to success with the Bills. And he mentioned that they love that they just have three guys who are unselfish, who go to work, who don't care who gets the touches, who gets the pass blocking technique and situation, and who gets the running targets and who gets passes. They all can do all those things. They have their own little differences in style. But, man, to get those guys cooking as you go from dome situations and nice weather to what could be a long stretch of crappy cold weather games in Buffalo and in New England, and then again in the playoffs, wherever you are, you're going to have at least one home game if you're the Bills, and maybe more, depending on how it goes. If you got to go to KC or Baltimore or Pittsburgh or however it all shakes out, weather in those places is usually crappy too. So you're going to need that running game to complement what Josh Allen does.
Yeah, keep in mind, if you end up going to Kansas City, the Kansas City-Miami game last year was colder than the Bills playoff game out here that weekend. And I always harken back when you ask, you know, is it going to be hard to adjust to the cold weather, throwing the ball, running the ball, blah, blah, blah. That game where the Bills hosted the Patriots in the playoffs a few years ago, the perfect game, and that was like 10 degrees out that night.
It was frigid, freezing cold. I was at that game, and Allen was just on a complete heater.
Yeah.
Micah Hyde made that interception early in the game.
Dawson Knox with a huge game that day.
And
I think a lineman scored too towards the end.
And so I don't think it really bothers them. I mean, Josh has said I'd prefer not to play in crappy weather.
Right.
But we're used to it. It is what it is. And they've really not shown a whole lot of signs recently that they can't handle it. I mean, they didn't play well against the Bengals at home 2 years ago when they lost in the divisional round in crappy weather. But other than that, for the most part, I mean, look at the way they dominated San Francisco in that game. So this team is primed for that. They're okay with it. It affects both teams. You know, if it's really, really cold, it's harder to catch the ball and all those sorts of things, which is why you rely on that running game and you rely on the unsung heroes up front and Dawkins and Edwards and McGovern and Torrance and Brown And Alec Anderson.
It's one at the line of scrimmage.
I like to
Andy.
give those guys some love as a former big lineman myself. Those guys get some shout out too because they're doing a nice job.
Yeah. Funny that you bring up offensive linemen, Andy, because the Patriots' offensive line stinks with a capital S, and that is really one of the main reasons why this Patriots team doesn't have more wins. They're just bad. They're really bad.
It's strange too because that was a hallmark of the Patriots dynasty. Great offensive line play, good defense, smart situationally. They never, other than the Randy Moss, Wes Welker little era there, they really didn't have great skill position players all along.
Right.
And they had a great quarterback. Now you're hurting in almost all those areas.
Jared Mayo was a big defensive player for the Patriots. You would think, why am I switching to defense right now?
I don't know.
Let me I got ahead of myself there. Yeah, and of course you have a rookie quarterback in Drake May, and they started the season with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Brissett was getting sacked all the time, kind of stopped them from putting in Drake May right away, but eventually they decided they had to go to the rookie.
And it's been better with him mildly, right?
Right. The problem is, while the offensive line stinks, the wide receivers core stinks as well. I mean, you have guys in the game last week where the Patriots lost out in Arizona, balls hitting off their hands, getting intercepted. I mean, I expect the Bills getting a few turnovers in this game just because their wide receiver crew is just sloppy at how they handle their jobs.
And it's interesting, too, because the Bills faced such trouble the last couple of weeks with injuries and with facing really talented offenses and offensive cores. When you look at Nakua, when you look at Cooper Kupp with Stafford and Kyron Williams, right. And then you go to last week and it's Goff throwing for 500 yards. Amon-Ra has a big game. Jamison Williams drops a deep touchdown. They've got Laporta and the running backs.
Right.
They don't have to worry about that kind of stuff this week, especially with their banged-up secondary that they're going to get torched through the air. So maybe that's a time where maybe they do play it safe with some of these guys.
Right.
And rest not healthy players, but players who are
kind of
70, 80, 90%, and a big game would play. In this game, maybe they don't necessarily push them in. And the Bills typically are very cautious with injuries anyways, so maybe that will allow some of these guys to take a patient approach.
Yeah. Demario Douglas, wide receiver. Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver. Kendrick Bourne, who was on the rise just a few seasons ago, got into Bill Belichick's doghouse last year and hasn't done much more now that Belichick has moved on. Hunter Henry still living up to the hype. I think he's the only reliable guy. And then you mentioned you didn't even know Austin Hooper was on the Patriots.
Right.
Anytime you watch any sort of highlight of the Patriots.
I try not to.
Right. It's either Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper making a catch or like a cutaway in the red zone. If you're watching the red zone channel.
Yeah.
That's all you see. And that's got to be tough if you're a rookie quarterback who can move. I mean, there have been comparisons to Josh Allen with Drake May. Mm-hmm. Big arm, can move, can get out of the pocket and throw out of the pocket. And for some reason, the Patriots aren't doing what Sean McDermott did with Josh Allen in his younger days as, you know, Allen grew into what he is now, where Allen, they would have design plays. They would, get him out there.
It's funny you bring that up because I was listening to Mike Giardi, who's a reporter in Boston, who was on WGR Sports Radio yesterday.
Yeah.
And he said that seems like the coaching staff or the directive from above is to not put in a lot of designed runs for Drake May. Yeah, he scrambles a little bit, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. There's nothing you can do about that. But they don't want to put him in that harm's way at this point in his career. Perhaps they want him to learn to be a pocket passer. They know they stink, so it's like let's not get him beat up.
Yeah,
more than he has to. That they seem like a team that is worse than maybe even we thought. That like their build and their organization just is kind of in shambles, as you said a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
About the Patriots. just not a good organization right now. I don't think people are super high on what's going on with Mayo. There's a lot of criticism about him. I don't think they have a whole lot of talent. There's hope in Drake May, but that's about it. I mean, Christian Gonzalez is a good player, but, like, it's just a team that doesn't seem like it's going to be getting better anytime soon.
You look at it and you're like, is Drake May just going to become another Mac Jones because of the situation he's in? Mm-hmm. You have Alex Van Pelt as their offensive coordinator, former Bills backup quarterback. I think he was here when Bledsoe was here, maybe one of Bledsoe's backups. He's been taking a lot of heat throughout the season on his play calling, the offensive design. There was an indication that Mayo kind of took a shot at him after the game in Arizona when reporters were asking why you didn't try and, run Drake May into the end zone and do something with Drake May. And his response was, that's a good question, which says to me he's taking a shot at Van Pelt.
Who better is there to talk about this than maybe the two of us? I grew up in Buffalo, Western New York area, know about the Bills since I was a kid and before that. You grew up in New England, have lived in Western New York for most of your adult life at this point.
Correct.
And have been covering the Bills. What a role reversal this is for these two franchises. It's remarkable.
It's amazing. So I was saying to someone who just had their first child the other day, I'm like, you could be looking at this scenario. My nephew was born the year Tom Brady took over at quarterback. His entire childhood, up until when he went to college, was the Patriots winning and just going to the Super Bowl almost every year, at least in the AFC Championship, his entire life. So what he's dealing with his Patriots now is just uncharted territory and unbelievable, and just growing up and crapping on the Bills all the time because the Bills were in that mega slump for 17 years.
Your nephew is like how I grew up. So my first game I ever attended and really remember about the Bills was against the Arizona Cardinals, then the Phoenix Cardinals in 1990. What happened in 1990? The Bills went to their first Super Bowl in that season. And so me growing up, it was, oh, my God, the Bills are amazing. And when I got into college after high school, that was the start of the drought. And then until I was damn near 40 years old, they didn't make the playoffs again. So it's
wild.
For Bills fans, I hope that your nephew experiences what I did.
Right. And maybe what I'm saying is this is the start of something right now with the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen gets another offensive player. He probably just has them stacked to the side if they give you anything for it. But we talk about this every week. He's playing at a completely different level right now than we've seen before. Sean McDermott has said it. You and I have said it. Stevie Johnson has said it. And that's all you need to know is if we're saying it,
it's got to be true.
It's got to be true. But it seems like that right now, that he's completely comfortable in running this offense, and Joe Brady helping out a lot. So maybe this is the start of a bigger run, not just getting to the playoffs and winning the AFC East 5 years in a row, but doing more damage as a team.
I mean, he's going to win the NFL MVP.
Yeah.
And Sean McDermott today alluded to, he was asked about Josh and how he's been able to mentally cut down the turnovers and hang on to the football. And Sean didn't get into like, oh, he's sleeping with a football at night or whatever and practicing it. He said, you know what? Josh has greater goals, and some of those are individual and some of those are team, and he's done a really good job at making the adjustments and being the best he can be, which to me right now, you can talk about careers, but today he's playing the best of anyone in the football league.
Yeah.
And so one of those goals might be he wants to win MVP, and he's certainly well on his way. Mm-hmm. Then the test is going to be, can he get them over that hump in the playoffs? Can they get back to the AFC Championship, which they haven't in like 4 years? Can they get over the Chiefs hump? Or if they play the Ravens or whoever it might end up being, the Steelers, right? Then get to the Super Bowl. That is what will ultimately define Allen. As unfortunate as it is, we all know wins play a huge role in how quarterbacks are perceived. Coaches too. maybe unfairly for quarterbacks because it's a team game. But you look at Mahomes. He's got 3 titles and gone to 4 Super Bowls or whatever it is, you know. Obviously, people think that Brady was better than Manning because Brady won more Super Bowls and outdueled him most times in the postseason. So for Josh to be an all-time great and do all those things and continue to pile up stats and firsts of weird things that he's done, right? This multiple touchdowns and this rushing yardage.
It's every week.
Right. I mean, it almost feels like the stats are made up because like you never go, boy, that streak's never going to get broken. Lou Gehrig's, like, the numbers, all right? Babe Ruth's home runs, Roger Maris's home run. Like, you don't know those stats, but every week it's an accumulation of incredible play. He's probably going to win the individual hardware this year. At what point does he get the Bills the big thing?
Right, and that's what we're looking at right now is the best chance seems to be right now, maybe since the COVID year when they were just tearing it up.
I mean, I think 13 seconds a year they were on a heater too. Had they found a way to win that game, you never know if they would have beaten Joe Burrow and the Bengals that year. I think that could have been a great year too. Even last year, they had the Chiefs at their place, and the Chiefs again seemed down. They kind of slimped. I love it. Slumbered and lumbered into the postseason.
Limped.
And, right, I think that's where I was going with that. And the Chiefs, everyone thought the Chiefs weren't good last year, and they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've had probably 3 years where, like, they got a real good crack at this thing.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
It's in New Orleans. You and I want to go to New Orleans. We're booking our tickets.
They're going to let you out of the studio?
I hope they do. We'll see. Don't make me angry.
Hey, you've been hanging out with me at the Bills.
I know. I've been leaving the building.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, put on NFL Network, Good Morning Football. A lot of talk that Lamar Jackson is still in the running for the MVP. That Allen doesn't have it locked up, but one of the guys on there said, you know, Jackson's playing in a standalone game on Saturday for the whole country to watch. Josh Allen's playing a meaningless game against the Patriots. If Lamar Jackson throws 5 touchdown passes again, he might leapfrog Allen. I just don't think just because you're the only game on TV. I mean, Allen had 6 touchdowns a couple of weeks ago and then had another performance like that getting up into the 40-point area. I just think that has already locked it up.
Yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard for the Bills because they have 3 terrible opponent games with Patriots twice and Jets, whereas, you know, Lamar has the Steelers, who the Steelers have his number for some reason.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. What is the Ravens' full schedule here? Let's vamp. Ravens, Steelers, Texans, Browns. So they've got
2 tough games.
2 tough, meaningful games, and then a rivalry game with the Browns at the end of the season. I mean, I think it's Allen, but, you know, voters are fickle. If Josh kind of eases his way into it, maybe he sits week 18 for whatever reason, and Lamar scores 4 and 5 touchdowns every week here.
Yeah.
And there's like this bias now because Lamar probably shouldn't have won it last year, and Prescott or Allen or somebody else should have won it last year. And Lamar's stats are way better this year, but their team success isn't as good.
Right.
The MVP's all jacked up. It's all twisted in team wins, but then do stats matter? Do they don't? Do moments matter more? I mean, Josh has had some outrageous moments this season.
Oh, heck yeah.
Who's had more memorable plays than him? No one. Even Lamar, who's lighting it up. Burrow's lighting it up.
Yeah, I mean, even a performance where you throw 5 touchdowns doesn't compare to me to Josh Allen throwing for 3 and running for 3 against the Rams.
How about Saquon?
No.
Even if he breaks Dickerson's record?
Here's my thing with Saquon Barkley. I think the Eagles would still be pretty good without him.
Yes. They were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago with
Miles
Sanders.
I mean, when I look at MVP, they could do it without Saquon. The Bills can't be where they are without Josh Allen.
I mean, so then that almost automatically just becomes a quarterback award.
Yeah.
What would someone have to do as a non-quarterback to win the award? When was the last time? 2012? Adrian Peterson? What would someone have to do?
I think that's come and gone. I think it's just the quarterback award now.
Because so much is on the quarterback.
Correct.
What about some crazy defensive, somebody gets 30 sacks?
No. Because all eyes are on the quarterback all the time, and they touch the ball all the time. So it's just become what it's become.
Yeah, Adrian Peterson is the last non-quarterback to win it. And prior to that, it was LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006, Sean Alexander in 2005.
But the league was different
It
then.
was, for sure. Yeah. I agree. I just think, everyone wanted to crown Josh, and now there's this backlash a little bit again.
Right.
Against it. It's so weird listening to this stuff. He is playing, Lamar has some better stats. But that's not all it's about.
Mm-hmm.
His team's better, and he has had wow moments in some big-time spots that make you go, oh, my God, this guy's just playing crazy.
I mean, I keep thinking of the play in the snow where he threw a ball to himself, technically. But, I mean, there was that 4th and 2 run against the Chiefs.
I mean, just look at some of the throws that he made against the Lions.
The throw to Keon Coleman was incredible. The fact that they didn't even get 3 points after that
was
play
terrible.
Is so aggravating, Andy. But
do you want to know what is an even better play in that game? The throw to James Cook.
yes.
So he's rolling to his left, hard, running to his left. Cook sees that, cuts back across diagonally to the right side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh somehow throws it out in front of him the wrong way,
Right.
throwing back to his right while running left on a line 30 yards down the field. And Cook catches it in stride. It's just ridiculous what that guy is able to do.
Yeah. We're locking him in for MVP, Andy.
I mean, I did 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so did I.
When are we going to get our votes?
Oh, that would be nice. Andy, I want to add when we go back to the flipping of the Patriots and Bills.
Yeah.
Is that when I was a kid, and I was not a Patriots fan, I am like I am now. I just like teams that are good on offense, which is basically every team now. The Patriots stunk. When the Bills were good, the Patriots were like 1 win here, 1 win there.
yeah.
Then they got Drew Bledsoe, and I always remember this. They finally beat the Bills in Bledsoe's second season.
94 would have been?
Yeah, 90. Yeah, that sounds about right. And that was
because they went to the Super Bowl in 95 or 96.
Yeah, they played the Packers and lost because Desmond Howard returned a kickoff, and I believe he got MVP of the Super Bowl. But that's when things changed. You had Parcells there, Bledsoe, and then Parcells leaves, and then the whole thing with Belichick showing up. Bledsoe gets hurt, and then history.
Pete Carroll was in between there, right?
Pete Carroll was there.
Yeah.
Did
you like Pete Carroll because his name was Carroll?
I would like to.
Did your father like Carroll?
I would like to clip out headlines from newspapers back then. We didn't really have the internet. I mean, it was but
Mid to late 90s, the internet's new.
Right.
Yes.
Patriots win because of Carroll. I'd clip that out and tape that to the wall. But as far as being a coach, Pete didn't go over well in New England.
Yeah.
Because you're coming off Parcells, and then when you look back at history, then Belichick walks in. So it was actually when he had success in Seattle, it was kind of a shock because I believe he failed with the Jets as well.
He did, but he was really good at USC.
Right.
In between there.
Yeah.
So
So that's the history there. We're in the next phase where the Bills are good and the Patriots aren't.
Speaking of history, we were going to talk about this too. The Bills going with a new uniform combo.
Oh, yes.
The red jersey, the color rush jersey with the white pants, which is very reminiscent of
the Patriots' old uniform with Pat the Patriot snapping the football. The Patriots do wear those as their throwbacks now because you can have multicolored helmets. So it is almost the exact look of how the Patriots used to look.
white helmet
at home. White helmet, red shirt, white pants, red socks.
Yeah. I don't love the red jerseys.
I hate
for the Bills.
I hate the all red look. When it was hinted that they were making an announcement the other day, and they had already moved the game to 4/25. So they usually tweet out their uniform look for the week, and they tweeted out Allen, white helmet, red jersey, white pants, red socks, mentioned the candy cane because of the holidays, red and white, and I love it. I love that look. If you're going to do it just once a year, just get rid of the red pants, and I'm cool with it. If I'm playing Madden, I'll do that once during my season, but I won't allow the red pants.
I want the red helmet to come back, and
I do too.
I have a feeling, I don't know anything about this, but I have a feeling they're saving it for 26 in the new stadium.
It would make sense.
That's their alternate.
Or may I suggest this?
Okay.
Why wouldn't you do it in the final year at what was Ralph Wilson Stadium
True.
recognize the teams of the 90s that played there?
That's true. I could see that too. That I hadn't even thought of that. That would be good. I would be for that. I think they should bring back the red helmet as the alternate helmet. I don't want them to always go to the red Super Bowl era.
But with the 90s jersey.
Correct. With the royal blue, the navy-ish royal jerseys. And the Bills' uniforms were kind of weird because if you look at the early days of Jim Kelly in Buffalo, it was almost more of a navy.
Right.
And then it got a little lighter blue.
Blue face mask.
Yeah, they had the Fred Smirlis back in the day, those 80s teams.
Those mesh shirts that they were just solid on top but all whatever. I had shirts like that as a kid, like team shirts, until my cousin Steve called me fat in them, and I never wore them again.
But anyways, I would like to see at some point a throwback that is the red helmet. And
absolutely.
Once a year, whatever. Bring it back for a special occasion. But I think it's time. That era is literally 30 years ago now.
Yeah, bring it. I'm just saying, bring it for a night game, a primetime game at the stadium where the Bills won all those AFC championships.
Yeah, the season opener next season or the final game next season.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that, and if they wait to do it at the new stadium, fine too. Okay, let's go to the game. Game is going to be cold, Andy, but we already talked about that on what we think and how that handles the Bills. The Bills minus 14 in this game. So the odds makers obviously think the Bills are going to just run away with this, and I don't see why they wouldn't, but it just has the feeling that
14 is huge. That is such a big number.
They've gone through so much the last few weeks and needing to put up points against the Rams and needing to put up points, and maybe this is a game where you don't need to put up points and they win,
23-10.
Right.
That's still, you won by 2 touchdowns. That would be too close for comfort. Like, if they don't cover that spread, we're going to come in next week, and people are going to be upset, aren't they?
Well, it's going to be
if
Christmas,
they don't hammer
so
them
they won't be upset. Yeah, that's true.
Bah humbug, Ebenezer Scrooge.
You didn't beat the Patriots by 20.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's not 42-10,
right,
you're going to be like, what were they doing out there?
Josh Allen shouldn't be MVP. The over-under is 46.5. Now, the Bills could put up 47 points on the Patriots.
I mean, they're scoring over 30 now, so almost every game. They put up 86 in the last 2.
Right.
Or no, 90.
Yeah.
They gave up 86. I'm going to say Bills. F it. Bills over. Bills cover and over.
I'm going to go with you on that.
So it's going to be like
I'm going to say
38-10.
Damn it, Andy. I was just going to say that.
All right.
38-10. We're both in agreement. That's how this is going to roll out. Maybe this is a game where Josh Allen doesn't need to be out there in the fourth quarter.
I would hope so. For their sake.
Yeah. All right, 3-0 before we go. Penix named the starter in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins benched. Is this the end of the line for Kirk Cousins?
Probably not, because
No?
teams always just need a quarterback.
I get it, but he really spiraled.
It just depends on what they can do with his contract.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be, but I would submit that if he gets cut, he'll end up somewhere. He's not
as a backup.
Or starts as a backup and then ends up playing. Teams always need somebody, right?
Yeah.
Think of I don't know. Who needs a quarterback right now? Desperately. Like, you thought the Panthers were, but Bryce Young has come on. I think they're going to stick with him.
Titans
could use somebody maybe. Levis is not great.
Right.
I mean, does Seattle go somewhere with a quarterback? But they've got Geno, but
right.
They need to get younger there. It'll be interesting. I mean, what do the 49ers do with the Purdy situation and paying him? Do they try to get Darnold back? Does somebody trade for J.J. McCarthy from the Vikings if they decide to keep Darnold? There's not a ton of teams that need like a lot of teams. Raiders, yeah, they're hurting.
I could see him on the Raiders.
I could see him on the Raiders for sure. Yeah, so I mean he might end up somewhere.
Sabres 11-game losing skid, Andy. They have made me hate hockey so much that I have not even played hockey the last 2 weekends, which I love doing, but hockey just doesn't interest me right now.
I said in the media room, I mean, I don't really want this to happen, but I was like, I want them to lose out for the season.
Mentally, it seems possible.
Terry Pagula goes to Montreal on a road trip, meets with the team and the general manager, talks to them face to face, and says, from reports, I don't know exactly what was said, but reportedly that the answer's in this room. I have faith in who's here. No one's getting fired. There's no big trade coming, etc. You get that news on Monday, and on Tuesday, you get smoked by the team you're fighting with for the worst in the Eastern Conference, the Montreal Canadiens.
Scoring like a minute, 2 minutes into the game. I put the game on.
It was 19 seconds, Kevin.
Oh, so I put the game on at the 2-minute mark. It was 1-0, and I went and just put on NFL Network to see what was on there.
Obey Kubel had a turnover or a misplayed puck, and then Power couldn't handle it. In 19 seconds, they scored. Jesus. I mean, I think they're worse than the Jets as the worst pro sports franchise in North America. I think they're worse than the Jets.
Yeah.
At least the Jets are mildly interesting. At least they're a tire fire where Rodgers is there and they make these bumbling, huge mistakes.
But the Jets also made an effort to be competitive.
Right. They did the wrong things.
It doesn't seem like the Sabres
they have no idea what they're doing.
And I mean, this has been said ad nauseam, but you look at these guys who are on the Sabres during this slump who have won Stanley Cups. Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Montador.
Oposo.
I know he got
Montour.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I thought you were calling me out. Like,
no. I was
like, you idiot.
No. I was trying to remember if you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's remarkable, and there's no end in sight.
No.
Looks like Lindy is at a complete loss for how to get this team out of it. Whatever core they've put together clearly is not the right people. Right. And Kevin Adams has hemmed them in because they have given contracts to young guys off a year or year and a half of decent production who in the last 2 years, short of Tage from time to time, and Dahlin, I think, is not great, but he's very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
They just – Cousins, Matthias Samuelsson. It's horrible.
Cousins, I thought, was going to turn into a superstar.
He looks like a shell of himself from 2 years ago.
Thought you were going to say something else that starts with SH.
Well, maybe that's too. But
Ends
I
in
don't
head.
I don't know what the answer is. Does Terry need to finally submit and bring in an experienced hockey guy and a group of people and scouts and different, because
It seems to me like he's tried that
he-
earlier in the slump.
no, because all the GMs have been first-time GMs. They had experience as assistant GMs or whatever. Did I just spit in your eye?
No, I think something fell out of the hat.
Okay.
Maybe you spit in my eye. I don't know. It's all good. I spit in your eye.
Where was I going with that? But yeah, because Tim Murray was a first-time GM, right?
That's
Bottrell was a first-time GM. Kevin Adams, first-time GM.
That's true.
So, I mean, they've tried weirdo coaches and like Ralph Kruger. They've tried Stanley Cup coaches, Bilesma. They've tried
Former Sabres.
Phil Housley. They've tried Lindy Ruff again. Ted Nolan was here. Pat LaFontaine was what are we they're a disaster.
I still think I'm not saying Lindy Ruff can turn this team around, but Lindy Ruff seems like he had this team in a right spot.
Look at all
at the start of the season.
Yeah, look at all the high picks they've had.
Oh yeah,
it's embarrassing.
I mean, we've been doing this for a while,
and the guys when first it seemed like it was a different regime, but it's the same thing. As soon as things go south, they crumble.
Yeah,
and to me that speaks to just a general culture that's carried over between eras of this Sabres drought.
Yeah.
Whether it was the tank years, at least those guys tried. Some of those guys weren't even NHL players, and they tried.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Eichel years were obviously there was promise, but then it was a mess, and they crumbled. O'Reilly famously said he lost his love for the game and lost his mental toughness, and here we are with the exact same situation again.
Evan Rodriguez has won the Stanley Cup, who was brought to the Sabres because he played with Jack Eichel at BU.
And he's turned into a decent player.
Right.
It's not great, but he's still in the league.
Yeah.
Playing.
On the Panthers.
It's remarkable, and I don't see an end in sight.
Yeah, so we'll move on. Favorite Christmas gift as a kid, Andy? I've done this with my old podcast partner, John Scott, before. Around the holidays, I was a big G.I. Joe fan as a kid, and one Christmas I got the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. It's as big as this table we're sitting at. It had planes you could land on it. Top Gun, I think, was coming out around then, so that whole thing was great. It was so big we had to put it up in the attic on the third floor, because you couldn't play with it anywhere else in the house. It was just too big.
That's sweet.
But I loved it. Opening that.
You're like, oh,
wow. Aside from.
Did you know you were getting it?
No.
Had you asked for it?
I think so, yeah.
But you weren't sure you were getting it.
I was not sure. The other thing we used to, every year, we get this is my age. The Sears catalog would come out. You'd circle everything you wanted in it.
Brand names. You remember that brand names catalog? That may have been a local thing here.
Okay. But every year they had football, NFL team jerseys and NFL helmets with padding in them. I had a Bills one, a Dolphins one. We had two Steelers ones, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers one.
The creamsicles?
Yep. A Patriots one, and I think maybe a Seahawks one. And it was winter. We put them all out in the garage and make fake lockers, put our uniforms on, then run out in the front yard and play football in the snow.
Well, that's awesome.
I mean, that was great. And those are things where you wish you kept some stuff from when you were a kid, because it would be so cool to have right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm thankful to my mom. She kept a lot of my toys.
Nice.
I collect WWF Hasbro wrestlers from the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I have almost the whole set. I've continued accumulating them in my 40s now, but my mom kept them all.
That's awesome.
I've got a bunch of different toys from when I was a kid. I'm going to sell some of them. I don't need everything, but she kept almost everything. For me, I have a hard time remembering exactly whether it was Christmas or my birthday, but getting video game systems was always the best.
That was big.
Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. I think a Sega Genesis was a Christmas gift.
My
in
parents,
the early 90s.
My parents pulled with the Atari 2600. That's how far back I go. The old, everyone's done with their gifts. All right, let's. They're having coffee. We're looking at all our toys, and hey, did you guys see that thing behind the couch? I think Santa left one more present over there. You break it open. It's the Atari 2600, and you couldn't get it set up fast enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, PlayStation, that was always the best. Some years you'd get a bike.
Yeah.
I remember one year I got like a Nautilus system for like working out in high school. So my mom was a big Christmas person, so
that's great.
She went all out. I love that, and I love it for my kids now.
Yeah,
like, I love seeing the expression and joy, and it's not all about that, but to me, because I'm not super religious, but it's like, and I did grow up in a religious household, but just to see that feeling of giving and like the excitement on their faces, and they do Elf on the Shelf now and that whole thing. So like,
fun.
It's a whole month of this BS. But Christmas morning, I love.
That's great. You got all your Christmas shopping done?
I think for the most part, we're getting some packages in here and there that we'll add to the list, but we're trying not to go as crazy this year on the gifts because it just gets overwhelming. Yeah. We have so much stuff at our house, so we're trying to ease it a little bit, but they'll still have a nice Christmas.
All right. You will be back on Sunday following the Patriots game.
Jackson Wang joining us as well.
With our buddy Jackson Wang filling in for me. Then Christmas is next Wednesday, and we'll go through the holidays. But then a pretty big event involving you, me, and Stevie Johnson just around the corner.
Stay tuned. We have a big announcement about the Buffalo End Zone podcast that we're really excited about. That's going to be something special coming up right after New Year's. Stay tuned in the coming days for a big announcement about that and how you, our listeners, viewers, might be able to get involved too.
And it's a playoff primer.
We can say that. Yeah. So
it will be a playoff
We're looking
primer.
forward to a big announcement about the Buffalo End Zone podcast. Stay tuned for that.
All right. As always, thanks for joining us, everybody.